Ndura mountain lion discovers an elderly park ranger tied to a tree, but what happens next is shocking. I'll never forget that crisp September dawn in Yellowstone National Park. The scent of pine needles and morning dew hung in the air as I followed the trail of disturbed undergrowth and what appeared to be drops of blood. As the head ranger of the North District, I'd heard whispers about Goldie, a massive mountain lion that had evaded trackers for years. But what I discovered that morning would change my life forever, and the life of Frank Sullivan, the oldest ranger in the park's history, a man who knew these mountains better than the lines on his own weathered face. Before I continue with this story that'll knock your socks off, I'd like to ask you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. As we say back in Montana, forewarned is forearmed, and you definitely don't want to miss any of these wild tales from America's national parks. So go ahead and subscribe, and let's get back to what happened that morning. Trust me, it's crazier than Black Friday at Walmart. The sun was just peeking over the Absaroka Range, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink like a perfect summer peach. My boots crunched on fallen leaves as I ventured deeper into the forest. My radio crackled with static, the signal as weak as gas station coffee at 3 a.m. This, deep in the backcountry, technology was about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. I'd set out before first light after receiving reports of gunshots in a protected area. In this section of the Rockies, poachers were more persistent than telemarketers at dinner time. And ever since trophy hunting had become the new status symbol for certain wealthy circles, the situation had become more dangerous than driving in Boston during a snowstorm. The trail led me to a small clearing where the trees formed a perfect circle, as if nature had set the stage for what I was about to witness. That's when I saw him, Frank Sullivan, all 70-something years of him, tied to a massive oak tree. His Park Service shirt was torn and blood-stained, his Stetson hat crushed on the ground, and his face, weathered by decades under the Wyoming sun, showed a mixture of pain and resignation. "Frank!" I shouted, running toward him, but I stopped dead in my tracks. Less than 30 feet away, crouched in the underbrush, was Goldie. The magnificent mountain lion watched us with amber eyes that shone like 2 gold coins. His tawny coat, the color of autumn wheat, gleamed in the early morning light. I'd never seen such a large specimen, so imposing, so aware. My hand slowly moved toward the tranquilizer gun I always carried on my belt, but a hoarse voice stopped me. "Don't do it, Mike." Frank's voice sounded rougher than usual. "That cat's been here all night." Could have torn me to pieces, but he didn't. With my heart pounding like a 4th of July fireworks finale, I stood frozen, caught between the elderly ranger and the predator. "What happened, Frank? Who did this to you?" The old man coughed, and a trickle of blood ran from the corner of his mouth, bright red against his pale skin. "The usual suspects. Son, the Blackwell brothers. They caught me checking their illegal traps and, well, you know how those guys hold a grudge. Tougher than a $2 steak at a roadside diner." The Blackwells were a family of poachers operating throughout the northern Rockies, more dangerous than a rattlesnake in a sleeping bag and with connections higher up than the Empire State Building. "They left me here last night, Mike. Said it would be entertaining to let the wildlife do their dirty work. Would add a special flavor to their revenge," they said. I looked at the mountain lion, which remained motionless, like a bronze statue in a Chicago park. His eyes moved from Frank to me, as if trying to understand our conversation. And the cat. When did he show up? Shortly after sunset. Approached silent as a ghost. Like the Grim Reaper coming to collect. Thought my number was up, that I'd be meeting my maker sooner than expected. Frank managed a smile that contrasted with the severity of his situation, showing the few teeth he had left, spaced out like houses in a Nevada ghost town. But Goldie just sniffed me, like he was recognizing my scent. Then he sat down right there, on guard. Every time he heard a noise in the forest, he'd growl and position himself to attack. It's like he was protecting me, Mike. That sounded more unbelievable than the tall tales fishermen tell at dive bars in Seattle. A mountain lion protecting a human was as unlikely as finding a snowman in Miami in August. To be frank, with all due respect, I think the night and the fear are making you hallucinate worse than a college kid after their first visit to Colorado's dispensaries. The old man shook his head while trying unsuccessfully to free himself from his bindings, which seemed more tangled than congressional legislation. Think what you want, son, but this animal and I have history, a history older than the Liberty Bell. At that moment, Goldie stood up. My muscles tensed like guitar strings before a rock concert. The animal moved forward, not toward Frank, but toward the opposite side of the clearing. He stopped, turned his majestic head, and looked at us, as if saying, "Follow me." "See? He wants to show us something," Frank murmured. "Or he wants to lead us to his den for breakfast," I replied, trying to cut the ropes binding him with my Swiss Army knife. Finally free, Frank stood up with difficulty. His legs wobbled more than Grandma's homemade Thanksgiving Jell-O. I supported his weight on my shoulder to help him walk, while Goldie watched us with feline impatience. "We're going to follow him," the old man decided. "Are you sure? With those injuries, I should take you straight to the ranger station in West Yellowstone. You're looking paler than a New Englander in February." "There's time for that. First, let's follow the cat." We slowly advanced after Goldie, who stopped occasionally to ensure we were following. The sun had risen high enough to warm the air, which smelled of pine and the wildflowers that bloom in spring throughout the Rockies. After about 15 minutes of walking, which for Frank must have been as painful as biting into a ghost pepper, thinking it was a bell pepper, we reached a small cave hidden among the vegetation. Goldie stopped at the entrance and emitted a soft sound, almost a purr. From inside came a cry that froze my blood colder than a Minnesota winter. It was the cry of a baby. Frank and I exchanged looks of disbelief, like tourists seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time. "Sweet Mother of Mercy," I whispered. With extreme caution, we peered into the cave. In a corner, on a bed of dry leaves, was a small girl no more than 2 years old. She was dirty and frightened, but miraculously unharmed. When she saw us, she stretched out her tiny arms and cried louder. "That's Sarah Kinsey's little girl," Frank said, his voice trembling. "Disappeared 3 days ago from a campground. The whole park service has been searching." Goldie walked past us and approached the child. I feared the worst, but to my amazement, the animal lay down beside her and began to gently lick her face, like a mother cleaning her cub. He's been taking care of her," Frank murmured, with tears rolling down his cheeks, as wrinkled as an American flag that had flown through too many storms. "Just like he watched over me last night." As I observed that scene, more surreal than an abstract painting in a New York gallery, Frank began to tell a story that seemed straight out of the tall tales pioneers shared around campfires on the Oregon Trail. 15 years ago, I found Goldie when he was just a cub. His mother had been killed by the same poachers who left me tied to that tree. I raised him in secret until he was big enough to fend for himself. Then I released him, but he never went too far. Sometimes I would see him watching me from a distance. The little girl had stopped crying and was now stroking the mountain lion's fur as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The Blackwells must have left her here to attract predators. They're as cruel as a drill sergeant on the first day of boot camp. With extreme care, I took the child in my arms. Goldie rose, alert but not threatening. "We need to get her back," I said, "and you need urgent medical attention, Frank. You're losing blood faster than a politician loses support after a scandal." The old man nodded, but his gaze remained fixed on Goldie. "He'll escort us to the edge of the forest. No further. That's where we'll part ways." And so it was. The majestic mountain lion accompanied us the entire way down, maintaining a prudent but visible distance. Whenever Frank stumbled, Goldie would stop and wait, as if understanding that the old ranger was injured. When we reached the forest's edge, where nature gave way to the park's maintained trails, Goldie stopped. His amber eyes seemed to contain all the ancient wisdom of the American wilderness. Thanks, old friend," Frank murmured. "You've saved my hide again, and it's more wrinkled than a dollar bill in a washing machine." The mountain lion emitted a soft growl, turned, and disappeared into the thick forest, as mysterious as the legends of Bigfoot that roam the Pacific Northwest. News of the rescue spread faster than wildfire in California. The Kinsey girl was received at the ranger station as if she were a returning astronaut. Frank was treated at the West Yellowstone Medical Center, and though he spent a few days more sore than a weekend warrior after their first CrossFit class, he recovered completely. The Blackwell brothers were captured a week later, thanks to the detailed description Frank provided. Justice finally fell upon them, heavier than a Boston snowfall in January. As for Goldie, the park authorities decided to declare him a specially protected species. Though I never mentioned in the official reports how we found the girl or who had watched over Frank during the night, some truths, like fine Kentucky bourbon, are best kept and savored in private. Sometimes, when we patrol the mountains, Frank and I see a golden silhouette watching us from a distance. The other rangers think it's just another mountain lion, but we know the truth. As Frank says, in the American wilderness, the line between reality and magic is thinner than Mom's apple pie crust. And I, after what I witnessed that dawn in Yellowstone National Park, can't help but agree with him.